we would have controlled use of the whole parcel, which includes the building and the surrounding green space, and therefore conservation of the surrounding green space, plus the storage capabilities in the basement. We would also be able to create a dedicated EOC, which is in accordance with the grant funds, which were already applied for and awarded to the town. Additionally, there is a revenue offset from a short-term rental agreement with CORE, the current business owner. The proposed timeline, which we brought forward at your May 14th meeting, would be to hold the public hearing tonight, and then at your regular meeting to consider the ordinance authorizing the special appropriation. If that were to be approved this evening, then the due diligence period of roughly 30 days would begin tomorrow. The town attorney and staff would finalize the purchase and sale agreement, which is already in negotiations, and a short-term lease with CORE, which is again also in negotiations, and the ordinance effective date would be June 14th. A little bit about the EOC project, because that does tie into the plans for the first floor of the building. Again, the current funding for the EOC project is $1.833 million for design and renovations of the EOC. The funding will not be a future request. It has all been previously allocated between the grant and the CIP. The grant is an award of $1 million. The matching funds to the grant are $333,000, which were approved by council in the CIP, and the additional $500,000 for the project was approved by council in the CIP as well. Tentative timeline for actually getting that EOC project completed is to purchase the building by June 30th, to undergo planning and architectural design until about March 31st. Then that also would coincide with the lease expiring. The building would be vacated by the short-term tenant, and then construction would be allowed to begin on or about April 1st, 2025. And roughly 2 months before that, we would have to apply for an extension of the grant, because the grant is supposed to be the work towards the grant is supposed to be substantially completed by August of 2025, which is a very tight timeline, given the fact that we still need to purchase the building and do all of our due diligence on the plan. I'm not going to read everything that's in the timeline here, but I just want to illustrate that this project, the EOC project itself, has been in the works since 2021, when the former emergency management director started by submitting a proposal for the construction of a new EOC to Demis prior to the grant application. Demis came back and said that the grant met the requirements of what the grant would cover. And from spring of 2021 through the next winter, the grant was applied for, it was received, town staff has done due diligence, and the project has continued to be developed between staff and council since 2021. I'll go to the next slide, but again, I won't read everything for the sake of time, just to say that since last summer, we have diligently gone back to OFI, to the building owner, and worked on negotiations for purchasing the building, and staff has come back to council and kept you apprised of what that process has looked like since that date. What is an EOC? FEMA defines an EOC as a physical or virtual location from which leaders of a jurisdiction or organization coordinate information and resources to support incident management activities. In essence, the EOC is a centralized space for stakeholders to plan for potential incidents or to address an incident as it occurs. Some reasons why an EOC would be activated for Newington are to aid in recovery following a human-caused technological or natural event. Examples are weather-related events, a major accident, or a hostile event, and to plan for the possibility of an incident during a major town event. So think that we would open an EOC also for planning purposes for large-scale events such as an extravaganza or a road race, and to address any other emergency incident impacting the town. Why a dedicated primary EOC? So the current EOC is housed in the police department roll call room. The EOC equipment, which is printers, radios, other technological equipment, is all stored away and requires significant time for staff to take it all out, set it all up, and get the room ready to be used as an EOC, especially if the EOC needs to be enacted outside of normal business hours. When it's configured as an EOC, the police department roll call room efficiently holds roughly 15 people. However, EOC stakeholders greatly outnumber this. So think staff, volunteers like CERT, emergency personnel, external agency members, including representatives from Eversource, would all report to the EOC. And that current room, first of all, is dedicated primary space to another use and also is very small. By creating a dedicated primary EOC, we would have immediate activation and emergency response in the event that something happens. We would be able to improve emergency management and preparedness capabilities. We will be following trends across the state and region. We are not the only town that has received this grant in the last 5 years, and we will not most likely be the only town receiving the grant if the federal government continues to fund it. It would also provide a space for CERT team meetings and trainings, adequate storage of all the CERT team supplies and equipment, adequate space for all EOC stakeholders when we need to respond. As we said in the last slide, the police department roll call room is very small for what we need. It also creates redundancy and emergency response capabilities, which is very important to the town's ability to mitigate risk and mitigate emergencies by creating potentially a backup dispatch center and redundancies in critical infrastructure. It would also delineate townwide emergency response from an agency operations standpoint. And when the EOC is not in use, that space is not going to sit empty for 300 days a year. It will be used for training and other town purposes. It will have multi-uses. It just needs to be a dedicated EOC for EOC purposes. So what might the EOC renovations encompass? As we said earlier, it's roughly 5,000 square feet of the main level, which will include a main conference room that will be big enough to hold all stakeholders, breakout rooms for smaller group discussions during an event, for a CERT staging area, and for food and supplies distribution, a shower area, multi-purpose space for situational needs, for example, sleeping quarters if, God forbid, we have one of those huge snowstorms that we had in 2010 or 2011, and we need to have people stay in the EOC. Also a kitchen area, and then again, a potential backup dispatch center. So the EOC space will encompass the renovations to the EOC space will also touch renovations to shared spaces. Demising walls, showers, bathroom upgrades, kitchen space can be used by all building occupants, not just the EOC. So that 5,000 square feet will touch more than just the 5,000 square foot space. For instance, funding may encompass copier and fax rooms, which can be used by all tenants in the building, additional exits and entrances for all occupants of the building, electrical work, HVAC work, data and fiber and Wi-Fi and cellular, infrastructure upgrades, security cameras, card access controls, automatic door openers, Lula and elevator upgrades, generator and FF&E, so phones, computer, media, furniture. The remaining floor space, and this is, something that the town staff has reviewed quite a lot. The natural conclusion is to move the Human Services Department into the remaining floor space on the first floor of the building. The department currently occupies roughly 3,000 square feet in Town Hall. Relocating this department into the building would allow that department to service the needs of the town community more effectively. And although the specific design of that portion of the building is not fully developed, it will require planning from the date of the purchase of the building. Ideally, they are indicating that they would need 9 individual offices so that they could create private confidential space to service all of their clients, a larger pantry, a multi-purpose room, a secure waiting area, conference room and copier room, which again can be potentially shared between both occupants of the building, and also distribution space for all of the good work that they do. Total building funding. So it's a pie within a pie chart. So you'll see on the right-hand side is our big pie. What does the cost for this building, including the EOC project, look like? Special appropriation request, which is a new request, not funded, of 1.8 million. And then the EOC renovation, which is already funded for 1.833 million. And you'll see that's broken down into what's in the CIP, which is the 833,000, and what is in the grant award, which is $1 million. There are, of course, other financial implications. There will be ongoing maintenance costs to, if we were to purchase the building and use it for town services. Obviously the town is going to have to keep operational expenses. However, we do think that most of those can be incorporated into existing contracts for services. So the impact to the budget will be minimal. There will also be moving costs to move Human Services into the other portion of the main level of the building, which we did obtain a quote, and it's estimated that those moving costs would be about $6,750. There will also be an offset to some of these costs in the first 9 months because we do have that short-term lease with the tenant that's currently in the building at a rate of $12,000 per month. I've given just a quick breakdown of what the financials could look like. So in fiscal year 23-24, which is the fiscal year that we are currently in, we have collected taxes from the building owner to date, and that is about $35,000. Next fiscal year, we would be looking at the lease revenue coming in, potentially 3 months of the operating and maintenance costs for the last 3 months of the year when the building tenant would be vacated from the building. And then also tax revenue for those first 3 quarters of 24-25. And I've also given an estimated loss of tax revenue because we will not be collecting the full 4 quarters of taxes. So in total for 24-25, it's somewhere around $111,000 that we would be up. Fiscal year 25-26, you see that number changes because now we are covering all of those operating and maintenance costs. We have the moving cost for human services potentially, and also the estimated loss of tax revenue based on today's numbers. But what you will see here is that we will not see a financial implication in the budget based on these numbers until about the fiscal year 25-26. However, the revenue from 24-25 will almost offset that. So the actual negative to the town is in the next fiscal year. So tax revenue. Moving the building off the tax revenue, off the tax rolls will of course have an impact on the tax revenue to the town. But it was our intent with town staff that the business located inside the building would be moved to another building within the town. So we would at least continue those personal property taxes. And we are working with the building tenant to help them secure space in town. That's part of all of the conversations that we have been having with the building tenant. Also, there is a potential proceed from the sale of the National Welding Building, which is located at 1 Myra Cohen Way. And that is an estimated revenue of $1.4 million, which would be transferred into the general fund, helping therefore to replenish what we might potentially remove from the general fund for the purchase of the building. Also, the National Welding parcel is larger than the 28 Garfield parcel. So it will lend itself to a larger development on that property than we have at 28 Garfield Street currently. And therefore, the anticipated tax revenue from selling this one town-owned space and putting it on the tax rolls should help balance taking a private building and taking it off the tax rolls. Okay. So just in conclusion, the EOC project has been a priority of the town for several years. And the project is at a point now where it can be moved forward through the funding of the purchase of 28 Garfield Street. Purchase of this property would help achieve the goals of creating a dedicated EOC, as well as allow for moving the Human Services Department to a more appropriate space. And the project has also been vetted by multiple staff project leads, 4 town managers, 2 mayors, and 2 councils. This has seen a lot of input and from staff and also all of your elected officials. Although it's not a cost neutral project per se, ultimate expenses in the operating budget are minimal compared to addressing the needs of the town. And purchasing 28 Garfield Street to accomplish these goals will also allow the town to control the future of a prime location. We will maintain access to parking for town events, allow control of the future use of the building, and also the ability to control the preservation of the green space that's so close to the town center. And that's it. You can open your floor for questions and comments.
We're not asking. So she's a giant. Yeah. It's not.
Oh, okay. Just one thing.
Can I just clarify one thing? This is out of order, but I just wanted to clarify a slide, that's all. Which is, I thought you alluded to the $375,000 amount on an earlier slide as a typo. Did I miss? I think in the charter section.
Is it 375?
375.
I looked at this so much.
But it's 375.
Yeah, it is
isn't
375.
Yeah.
I just wanted to double check. Okay. Sorry, don't mean to,
Okay.
but
Thank
just
you.
wanted for the public's
Yeah, for the
clarity.
public's
That's all.
clarification.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Sorry for my out of order comment.
All right, we will now open up the floor for public comment. For those folks on Zoom, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. For those in the room, if you'd like to speak, please feel free to come up. Just state your name and address for the record, and I'll alternate between in the room and folks on Zoom.
Hello, everybody. Brian Whalen, 22 Pebble Drive. I'm here tonight to talk about this EOC. In one of these handouts you have, it says EOC staffing, and it talks about the stakeholders. Have all the stakeholders been consulted with this? I don't believe they have. And I think all the stakeholders should be involved in this before any decision is made. I know the fire department has never been once asked about this EOC. We have a room at the firehouse that we'd love to let the EOC use. As you know, you guys come there for our commissioners meeting. We're set up for storms. We have beds, we have showers, we have cooking facilities. I think in the 44 years of being a firefighter in this town, I think the EOC's been open maybe 5 times, partially opened. Most of the time, just partially open, not a full-fledged opening. I think we should really call this what it is, and it's an extension of the town hall because there was not enough room in the town hall when it was built, and we just spent $32 million for. And what I don't see being shared is how much is it going to cost to renovate the other 7,500 square feet? We're talking about the 5,000 square feet for the EOC at 1.83 million. What about the rest of the building? Are we just gonna throw the human services into a 7,000 square foot building and 7,000 square foot space and not do anything for them? You're gonna put the human services in there, you're gonna need refrigeration, you're gonna need walk-in coolers. This is gonna cost a lot more money, and does that push it into a referendum? I think that we need to seriously look at the money that we're spending. Like I said, we just spent $32 million for this town hall. And we're run out of space already. I think it's kind of crazy. As a taxpayer, I think it's absurd. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dan Havens, 113 Stoddard Avenue. First, I kind of like to have a point of order. I'm not sure this is a legal meeting because your Zoom link is wrong, still wrong on this town website. Somebody did post a corrected link to Facebook, but if many of our fellow citizens are like many of you propose to be, and don't go on Facebook, then they're not going to know. So now this meeting is not available to all our citizens. So I'm not sure this is even a legal meeting. That being said, I got some other stuff to say. I believe you're being very short-sighted in your decision to purchase OFI property to increase, obviously, it's purely to increase the town hall's footprint and add additional parking for the extravaganza and other activities. It also leads one to believe that the rush to get this done now is so that you'll have at least 2, if not 3, I can't quite figure out the ordinance there, more special appropriations available to you. So you can pay for the entire project via special appropriations and not go to referendum, and the total would definitely equal a referendum. So I think this is, you said transparency, I think this is anything but transparent, what's going on here. Back to why I think the property purchase is short-sighted. The current trend in development in the state, unless you also plan on buying Hartford Hospital, Cedar Crest Hospital properties for green space, and with the best market property owners wanting to make it multi-use development, we are about to see a housing boom in Newington like none of us have ever seen. Maybe some of us older folks, but people my age have never seen. Taking away commercial property that's earning tax income now and will earn even more once nearby multi-level housing has been built is, I believe, a bad and short-sighted fiscal decision. If you want the footprint of the town hall to grow, as is stated in the presentation, expand it over at our senior center. Add on there. You've got plenty of property there. You can put up a building where the Transition Academy trailers were, or you could add on to what's existing. You said you needed to file for an extension for the grant anyways, so just change the reason for your extension to looking into adding on to your senior center. That's it. other than I'm really disappointed in you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Scott Kraskowski, 46 Miami Avenue. First of all, I'm not sure if this meeting is legal, like Dana said. It was improper to hold to give the presentation before a public hearing. That time has come and gone already. And you delayed this process by having this presentation. Totally improper, possibly illegal. I emailed Jamie today. I emailed the mayor today asking about this, got no reply at all. Crickets. You guys are playing games trying to push things through. I don't know why. The town is watching. You got this, you got the Alumni Road thing coming up. Completely unacceptable. And I'm gonna call you out on it for everything you do. You don't like it? Too bad, resign. I don't care, get out. As far as this proposal goes. I don't have a problem with the proposal if we knew what the actual costs are. We're remodeling 5,000 square feet and we don't know what the other 7,500 square feet are gonna cost. We don't know what the remodeling costs. You're asking for $1.833 million. Is that including all the furniture? Is that including all the computers? Is that including the fire equipment? Is that including the servers that are needed? Blah, 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 across the board. We don't have answers to these questions. You guys are looking to jump into buying this property. And there's plenty of other town property out there. I know the middle schools have empty basements with more than 5,000 square feet available where this would fit in perfectly. This EOC is not going to be manned. It's not going to be used except in the case of rare emergencies. And like Brian Whalen said, how many times have been used? Maybe 5 times over the 40 years he's been here. It's wrong. It should not be pushed through tonight. Slow it down. Let's figure out what the total project is. Let's, figure it out. I'm so happy to hear that the human services can possibly move in there and get the space they need because they desperately need it. I know of all the food that is spoiled in this existing building because of not proper ventilation for their freezers and refrigerators. That's donated goods that people came to town hall and made sure that people wanted to give so that people can get, because we have people in need here in Newington. I'm really happy with that. I want to see a total proposal of everything. You want to fit this in before the deadline so you can get one free usage of your expenses for the year. And I think you're just rushing it. We just need to take a bigger look at the picture and really decide what we want to do with it and come up with a big plan for it. And if you decide to buy the OFI property, good. If you decide to put it somewhere else, great. We got $1 million to spend. As I say, we got plenty of space in this town. The town owns a lot of property and there's a lot of empty space in the property that the town owns. It can go there. We just need to put the brakes on this. Don't rush it through tonight. Think about this, come up with a plan and make something good that everybody in Newington can be proud of and use the money for everything, for just making a great project for the town. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
much.
Anybody online? Come on up, feel free.
Sorry.
You're good.
That's all right.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Eon. I live at 175 Ashland Avenue. And I have to say that despite my looking at this online just a couple of hours ago and finding out that this has been going on for the last several years, this today is the first time I heard about it. And I only heard about it because somebody came around my neighborhood a couple hours ago and handed me a notice saying this hearing was happening. So I'm a little upset about that. I have no real problem with you citing an EOC, but I don't think that the OFI property is the highest and best use for that property where it's located for an EOC in the basement. It might be nice to have the town owning additional properties, but as other people have pointed out, you have plenty of other places that you can expand to, including the fire department that was pointed out here. Newtown has an EOC. I looked up online just to see what there is required. And their footprint is just about the same size as the fire department that exists over here. I don't know what an EOC additionally requires beyond the renovation that you people have indicated for the costs, the additional costs, but I'm guessing that they're gonna need a radio tower. They're gonna need fencing at some point if they start to bring in equipment in the event that there's some kind of an emergency. This is not the location for that. Get the hospital, the old hospital up on Cedar Mountain, go into this with Hartford, renovate that space. Find another space somewhere else that has more parking and more available space for emergency equipment. And the kind of people who are going to be coming in for training, if you use this as a training facility at some point, this is not the location for it. In the center of town, in the center of a residential area. That's my point. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have one on Zoom with their hand raised.
Recess at 7 and then come
Yeah.
back. Okay.
Go right ahead.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Alton Drive. I'm not going to add anything further to what people have already said because I think that you're going to hear from others, but I just want to make some comments regarding how this public hearing was disseminated out to the public. And I get it that the legal notice was put out there and it looked fine. It said the meeting was at 6:15. I went to the virtual meeting schedule and it said that the meeting was at 6 o'clock. And I think you're all aware of the fact that people had trouble getting in on Zoom, et cetera. But I would have never known about the additional information had I not received a news flash, Newington news flash at 11:48 this morning, directing me to a website, which is the news flash, Newington news flash. And in the upper left-hand corner, the title was Budget Public Hearing 2013. I did look at the information. It was quite too much for me to really go over line by line, but it seems to be a lot of information that was already presented, but there was new information there as well. Then around 3 o'clock, there was a Facebook notice from the town of Newington government Facebook page. At no time did I receive any information that I normally receive through my notifications from the town. Both of these came, one was Facebook and one was from Newington Flash, and it directed me to a website. When I went to the agendas and the minutes where I normally look up things, I couldn't find this attachment to the public hearing notice. And then one of the town councilors put out a notice that, you know, if there's any comments or questions, they can direct them to the town council. Well, it's also in your rules, I believe, that written comments and questions may be submitted to the town council up to 24 hours prior to the meeting or via email at the town council at newingtonct.gov, whatever it is. I can't remember actually the correct email address, but yet you're sending out this additional information just hours before the meeting. And then I heard from someone who tried to get into the building that the doors were locked. This is not good. Something has to change. And I'm not blaming all of you because I know that this has been going on for 3 years. I just think it should have been more public and not just in executive session. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rose.
Thank you.
At this time, so we have to convene our regular meeting at 7 p.m. So what we will do is we will just listen. We are going to go into recess for the public hearing, convene our regular meeting because we have to by law, and then go into recess and come right back to the public
We're gonna
hearing.
come
It should take about 5 minutes. So we have to do it by statute. So we will recess briefly, convene the regular meeting, recess that meeting, and we'll be right back to hear from the rest of the folks that would like to speak. All right. Do we need to leave the link? All right, very good. At this point, we will reconvene the public hearing, but before we get started, I just want to first thank everyone for hanging with us and dealing with and bearing with us through these technical difficulties. Obviously, there's been a few things here tonight. So we also think, in addition, we want to hear from everybody tonight, but we will hold another public hearing on this, just because this has been so kind of scattered with a lot of different issues that are out of our control, but we want to make sure that the public gets a chance to speak. So we will hold a second public hearing on this, but obviously if you're here tonight, please feel free to come up and continue. If you're in the room, please come up and state your name and address for the record. Or if you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand function in Zoom and we'll let you know when it's your turn to speak.
Hi, my name is Bill McCarthy, 206 Churchill Drive. I just want to say that I still support the proposal to purchase the property at 28 Garfield. As far as people not knowing about this meeting, I knew about the meeting. I've been getting Facebook posts. There's a few of the people that are very active on Facebook are here at this meeting tonight, which I'm very proud of. The process itself sounds like it's been going on for a number of years, and that's how process works. Should we talk about it some more? Maybe. I think the thing that we have to look at right now is that we need to expand our footprint with our town hall. And the reasons why we need to do that don't really matter. I think the property that's available at 28 Garfield is a wonderful proposal. And I guess that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Yeah, we're gonna speak, so I don't know if you want to bring her up next.
Yeah.
Good evening, Wendy Holness, 31 Barkledge Drive, Newington, and I have a few notes here. I came to the last town council meeting and I heard the presentation on this and I thought it was quite comprehensive last time. There was some confusion over the money and a few of the details, and it clarified for me tonight, but much of what I heard tonight I had already heard last time. So transparency is in the works. I don't feel anything is being slammed in here or nobody's trying to shyst anybody here. My opinion is that for all intents and purposes, there is no EOC in Newington. The roll call room is not sufficient. I have 40 years of IT experience. I know all about disaster backup and recovery, and you certainly don't want your equipment in storage in the basement, collecting dust and moisture and everything else. That's not how you run an emergency operations center, so we really don't have one now. You could use my garage and call that as good as the roll call room, as far as I'm concerned. So we do need to do something, and I support that. And I also am not afraid to say, it seems to be a hotbed, I'm not afraid to say town hall is too small. It's water under the dam. Who cares? That's where we are now. Let's do something about it. I think that moving human resource or human services is a great fit. I don't think it's a good place here for the clientele. I love the OFI building. I love the location. I love the size. I just think it's perfectly situated. I am also not one that likes to leave money on the table. I appreciate this council circling back on a grant. I know this is not the only one that has been outstanding from the former administration. You have circled back on several and acted on it, so I really appreciate the efforts. Hence, there's a bit of a urgency on some of the timelines. He's just looking to see what the public wants to do about this. So I do support it greatly. Again, I appreciate the honesty and the openness of the council and the transparency. I do think that human nature is reluctant to change and often spins that negatively. I do not. Again, going back to my 40 years of IT experience, every day was change for me. I embrace change. I don't have a problem with that. I trust that this council will make tough decisions. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Leslie Corrigan, 32 Hart Lane, Newington, obviously. I have a couple of different questions. I have a question about the construction that begins somewhere around 4/1/25. Is it to just the inside of the building, or is there an addition happening, construction, part of the building coming down? My property, is actually right behind it by the green space. And also, so those are the two things about the construction on the timeline, but the green space is obviously very concerning because it's also very wet. So if it gets taken down, there will be a drainage issue. There's a drainage issue now in our property and the 3 houses surrounding our land. So that's really our concerns. Anyone could buy the property and can do anything with the green space. If it's not wetlands, we don't know actually. So we need an emergency response center because we don't have it in the police department. There's options for anywhere, but if you want to purchase it, no one can. So that's not our concerns. My concern is about the green space and also the demo of the building. Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have one on Zoom we will go to next. Mr. Horrigan, you're up.
David Horrigan, 30 Candlewood Drive. Good evening. Thank you for fixing all the technical issues. I appreciate your efforts. As a human services volunteer, I would say yes, yes, yes to moving the building. But as a taxpayer, I'll say no, no, no 10 times. It's a silly move. We don't need it. We're dealing with what we have. When the cost for this project is all added up, you will be exceeding the requirement for a referendum. It's not right now, but when you add the other costs to renovate the rest of the space, what you're doing is you're piecemealing this and you're avoiding the referendum. You're just basically gaming the system. So use the firehouse space for the EOC. And if you want to spend all the rest of this money, then give the taxpayers a fair shake and let's have a referendum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, you are up.
Good evening, town council members, Mr. Mayor, Jamie. My name is Stanley Sobieski. I live at 26 Deepwood Drive, Newington, Connecticut. I've been a resident of this town for 75 years. I've watched this town grow from being a farm town to where it is today. I'm in favor of the OFI purchase, and I'll tell you why. We live in a new age. Basically, we have a lot of domestic terrorism going on. I retired from the Department of Transportation with 41 and a half years. Part of my operations was Homeland Security for state and federal, especially the rail lines. And, you know, if you look at it, you have a rail line that traverses this town completely. All right. You have passenger service during the day. At night, you have 6 to 8 freight trains dragging through here with 80-car drags. They contain petrol. They contain explosives. They contain other material. You have a derailment, you're going to have a problem like East Palestine, Ohio. You have to wait for the emergency management place to open up in the State Armory. Forget it. You need to have something. If you have boots on the ground, you need to move immediately. Second thing you have is you have 3 bridges going over that rail line: Willard Avenue, Cedar, and the Britain Avenue. Any one of those could fail or have some device put on to close that rail line. You have a lot of infrastructure that's at play here. And I think you need to have the maximum coverage for the residents of the town of Newington for their safety. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a perfect location. That police department and the town hall would be taken out with any type of device. All right, and you would cripple the operations in town. All right, my opinion for what it's worth. And again, I'm in favor of this thing. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Sobieski.
everybody.
Hello.
I'm Joan Haynes. I live at 56 Garfield Street, so your proposal will become my direct neighbor. And I wrote a few things out, but my concerns are, what is it going to look like for me? I have small children in my house, and I am worried that there will be a little more kind of activity there that I'm not wanting to have in my neighborhood. A few years before we came here, Garfield Street was a cul-de-sac, and it ended at the park. It was a nice little thing, and over the years, different things have changed. The police cars are one of the things, they zoom down our street every day. And for a while, they were saying that they wouldn't start blowing their sirens until they hit Main Street, but now it's a common occurrence. Last week, I saw a SWAT vehicle going up our street with a police car behind it with the sirens going. And already our neighborhood has changed because of those things. We lived through the renovation of the town hall. There were those 14-wheeler trucks starting at 5 in the morning. They shook our house. We shook in our beds, but it was for the good. We had the oil remediation, all of that. Again, the big wheeler trucks, that was a big change. And even the extravaganza, which was small, and we enjoyed having that, but it turned into a carnival. And those big carnival things go till 11 o'clock at night for 4 nights. And on, like that kind of things. Things that, like on our side of the street, the town is responsible for the sidewalk. Very nice for us, but every year they tear up the lawns, and every year you have to. So there are small things, and I am happy for the town to move forward and to do well, but to have the police station on one side of this, on one end of the street, and an emergency operation place on the other makes me a little anxious. And will eventually that green space not be preserved between us? Now, OFI has been a great neighbor, and whoever is there now too, they let people park there. They, when they do their big May 5th celebration, you know, you're kind of included in it, and they're careful to keep on their property. But I don't know how an emergency response team works, how often you'll be activated, and how that will impact us as a neighborhood and also as a family. So those are my concerns.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Jamie, good evening. Michael J. Fox, 1901 Main Street. I would be in favor of this project, except for a couple of things. Well, number one, I wouldn't like it in Town Hall, as Mr. Sobieski previously mentioned. In these days, you really shouldn't be putting all your eggs in one basket, no matter how big or small that basket is. But please, when this hearing is over, please don't make a decision yet. I feel that you need to really go into the cost, the renovation costs, the equipment, the soft equipment, this, that, and the other thing. It's too early to make a decision. I know past council and past town managers have been in favor of it, but evidently most of these people behind me and up on Zoom really haven't heard too much about it. So give us a chance, and give yourself a chance to make it a good project. Thank you.
Thank you, Fox.
Good evening. My name is Cassandra Masano. I live at 79 Lantern Hill. While I'm a newer resident, what I lack in experience here in the town of Newington, I've made up in my formal education and experience as a war veteran for the past 16 years in the active duty Air Force, as well as the Air National Guard, as a certified emergency manager from the International Association of Emergency Managers, and having a master's degree in emergency management. With all that said, I want to thank you for being here to discuss this on such a crucial initiative for the resilience of our town. And I'm here to advocate for the purchase of the OFI property, the establishment of a dedicated EOC, and to stress the urgency of utilizing the fiscal year 22 Emergency Operations Center grant program funds that were already awarded to the town of Newington. since 2021. The town has been working tirelessly towards this goal. It's very evident. However, I think the majority of us in this room would like to see that transparency going forward. We can't go back in the past, but we would like to be included in the planning and the process moving forward. This $1 million grant provides an exceptional and time-sensitive opportunity that we must seize so we don't forfeit these funds. I think I missed the first part of the formal presentation, but I'm not sure if it was said. The 36-month mark of acceptance of this grant is the absolute cutoff deadline. If we don't use the funds, they'll go away. So firstly, some may wonder, why can't we just use the police roll call room? As many have stated before, what was sufficient in the past just is no longer adequate for us now. The frequency and severity of both natural and man-made disasters have surged in recent years. Here in Connecticut, we've witnessed the devastating impacts of thunderstorms, lightning, winter storms, extreme heat and cold, hurricanes, floods, you name it. But we need a robust and coordinated response to mitigate the impact effectively. And second, why can't we use the state's emergency operations center? Well, man-made disasters, such as the industrial accidents that we've seen in the news, hazmat spills, cyber attacks are also on the rise. And the complexity and interconnectedness of our modern infrastructure heightened our vulnerability to these incidences. But it's our responsibility as a town to first exhaust all of our resources and manage ourselves first, and then lean on the state if we have to. They will not be there when the time strikes. Third, why can't the town use an existing town-owned open office space for at least planned events? So a dedicated EOC establishes a common operating picture, facilitates operations, enhances continuity, provides access to vital information, and so on. The EOC will be able to manage both large and small scale incidences and events, including those planned and unplanned emergencies. And the EOC is not merely just for major disasters. It will actively be used for the planned events like we discussed, the extravaganza, parades, concerts. And by doing so, it'll really help train and prepare those who are going to respond to actual emergencies. So turning to the EOC grant itself, this $1 million opportunity needs to be acted upon in order to meet the required deadlines. This grant is designed to help forward-thinking communities like our own to implement hazard mitigation measures before disasters strike and reducing long-term risks and enhancing resilience. If you've looked at the news recently, you can see that FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security are cutting their budget, essentially. And if we don't use this grant now, well, the timing is right. Fiscal year 24, 25, 26, we don't know what the budget will have in store for us. In conclusion, by using this $1 million EOC grant in a timely manner, we can be more resilient. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right on time.
Good evening, I'm Rose Frank. I'm at 147 Hillcrest Avenue. I'm one of the neighbors of Mill Pond Park. I'm not in favor of this purchase. I think the taxpayers really need to know a little bit more of what's actually happening and why there's a push for this. And with regard to tonight, I came home to this flyer being put out that there was a public hearing and they talked about the pond being put at, the pool being put at the OFI building. So I don't know what's really going on because I just literally got this and I'm a little perplexed about this. But I asked that we take a little bit more time to buy something. And that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Hello, Greg Ostrinsky, 267 Audubon Ave. So one reason my wife and I chose to move to Newington 3 years ago is the potential we saw. It's right there in our town seal behind you all, growth and progress. And the town of Newington is growing, both from the developments approved by the previous administration and any to be approved by current and future administrations. And as our town grows, so must the resources that this town has at its disposal. We need to continue to invest in Newington, or we will stagnate, leaving future development and investment to go to our neighbors while we get left behind. This is a great opportunity for Newington to acquire additional land in the center, both for an emergency operations center and any other uses we may find for it. The grant awarded to the town offers us a way to offset some of the cost of this project, as long as we are forward-thinking enough to use it. And given that we as Connecticut residents, for every dollar given to the federal government, only get 74 cents back, feels pretty good to do our part to drag some of that back home. Our town of Newington is growing, and this is an amazing opportunity to use a windfall to offset the cost of town improvements.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the room or over Zoom that would like to participate?
You guys.
Good evening.
Hello.
Chris Minor, 119 Revere Drive. I just want to preface my comments that I do believe there is a need for a dedicated emergency operations center. I do believe there may potentially be additional space needs for human services. But I implore you to do more due diligence to determine a budget, determine a need before you commit to proceed with this project. My reluctance is due to the fact that I was involved in two separate building projects that both went into the project planning stage, underfunded, undercommitted, only to meet a construction budget without meeting the need. The definition of insanity is repeating the same process and expecting a different result. I don't want to do it again, because ultimately, at the end, the taxpayers are the ones that pay the price. The OFI project, I had reluctance at first. I still have concerns over a budget. I heard the initial public discussion during the last council meeting as well as the hearing tonight. I have two remaining concerns that have yet to be addressed. I heard no mention of a building committee on a project that is potentially looking at $3 to $4 million plus dollars. I asked, the last conversation was the town attorney's consideration as to whether or not this project required going to referendum. It was my understanding that the attorney stated it was not, yet the slides that I reviewed tonight, one of the slides which was not presented did indicate that the previous town manager, and this is frustrating because we've had so many previous town managers, there's no reference to which manager it was unless you know the time period, indicated last fall to pause until a determination was made as to whether or not the project required a referendum. It was my understanding that it was paused and it was not resumed under that previous town attorney. So I'd like a notice of acceptance as to whether this does not require going to a referendum or it does. If it does, bring it to a referendum. Simple. It's not that difficult. My only other concern is, and this has nothing to do with our town staff, is the amount of properties that we have and the staff's ability to maintain a budget and our existing facilities and not fall into further disrepair. And to add an additional property and take an additional property off of our tax roll, I also have additional concerns. But in closing, I do support the need for an emergency operations center. I do support the need for expanded operations for human services. But my only unanswered question is who takes over the space in the building here? If you lay this all out and you're transparent in your actions, I think you'll find the support. But without having hidden surprises and not knowing what we're getting into and finding out on the other end, I think we'll give everybody the service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Anyone else in the room or over Zoom that would like to participate in the public hearing? All right. Seeing none. Entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
No. We have some letters, I believe.
Oh, that's right. Do we do have, I'm sorry, that's right. We do have a letter. Sorry. Do you want to read that, Gail?
Well, yeah, I got one,
Oh,
and I
okay.
believe it was distributed as well.
The town manager sent.
Yeah, we did it. One written correspondence. Sorry about that.
This is from John Bashan, 56 Maple Hill Avenue, Newington. Letter to the Newington Town Council regarding the public hearing on 528 for consideration of purchase of 28 Garfield Street. I'm opposed at this time primarily because of a technical quirk or defect in our charter that leaves Newington voters vulnerable with no recourse to petition for referendum on costly spending plans, as was the intent of the section of the charter specifically designated to guarantee such checks and balances. The section is number 410, titled Right of Referendum on Ordinances. And the defect is sloppy, redundant language where the exceptions to the rules are listed. The word more instead of less is used where the item referring to spending amounts of $375,000 is spelled out. Redundant, quote, helpful reminder, because both exceptions are previously carved out in section 408, meaning that emergency appropriations and special appropriations less than $375,000 are already not subject to the 15-day waiting period prescribed in section 406. So there would be no option to petition for referendum on those items. This oversight has slipped through the cracks for decades, even though the most recent charter review revision process where I brought it up to no avail. As it stands, the result for taxpayers' voters is detrimental, allowing just 5 votes on the council to spend up to the threshold obligatory referendum amount, 1.5% of the budget, approximately $2 million, twice a year, with zero option for public oversight, except for non-binding opinions offered at public hearings. I've been crowing about this for years now, but have gotten no traction. Admittedly, it's a nerdy technicality, which, as far as I am aware, has not previously come into serious consideration. That has all changed now with the recent increase of the obligatory referendum threshold coupled with this real property purchase proposal, the largest appropriation dollar-wise of its kind in the history of the town. This creates a situation where the protections offered by a charter section named Right of Referendum on Ordinances could easily conceivably be employed by voters so inclined to exercise their civic involvement at a level more impactful than just offering their opinion at a public hearing. I hope my observation is better received today. These charter sections are clear and succinct, adopted originally by farmers and firemen. Their intent jumps off the page as being protective of the town voter and taxpayer interests, except in our case, for a one-word mix-up. We are left with a situation where 3 charter sections conflict and make no logical sense, leaving voter rights negated. To get a better understanding, read the short sections like this. Start with number 408, and read 406, and then finally go to 410. Every other local town charter I've looked at supports the premise of my concern. Of course, we're not dictated by how other towns enact their charter provisions, but when you compare them to our own, you will see mirror intent despite a difference in logistics and threshold amounts, right up to the amount where ours collapses into disarray. Clearly, I'm no legal expert, but I would think that this leaves the town susceptible to the L word. If someone chooses to challenge in the courts our current unprecedented, unchallengeable charter provision for passage of a relatively big ticket appropriation, such as the one that we are presently considering. I also hope that our very capable town staff is finally becoming aware of this defect risk and is advising the council accordingly. Regards, John Bashan. And then attached are some examples from different towns about their ordinances and referendum requirements.
Do we have any additional email or written correspondence?
No.
One more chance. Anyone in the room or over Zoom want to participate? No. All right, now I will answer something. Oh, okay. For the regular meeting, the current link is where you should go to access the regular meeting, for the YouTube.
And do you want to say anything more about what you said earlier about a second? public
Yeah,
hearing?
we are going to have a second public hearing on this, so I mean, I know some concerns about what may happen tonight, but again, like I said, we will have a second public hearing on this, at some, either by the 11th or before.
So we're not voting on this tonight.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
So.
Second.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Rada, second by Councilor Tiniakis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.